Much for that update. Now for some historical context on today's tragedy. I'm joined by John Stamper, professor of architecture at the University of Notre Dame, and Craig Considine, professor of sociology at Rice University. John, let me start with you. I guess we should start on the silver lining, which is that there was a point today where both the images we were seeing and the authorities' very bleak prognosis made it seem that it may be the case the entire church would be reduced to rubble, and that seems to have been avoided.
Yes, Chris. I was concerned this afternoon that while the wooden roof structure on top of the nave and the transept arms, that was clearly being completely destroyed, I was hoping that the stone vaults that are inside, the vaults that you see when you look up inside the nave, I was hoping that they would be secure. But your report suggests that at least the stone vaults have collapsed as well, with material and debris falling into the nave itself. So that's a real tragedy. The other thing I was worried about were the two great rose windows on the north and south transept arms. And I think the largest of those two rose windows, the most historic from the 1250s, it looks like they have been saved, fortunately. Wow.
Craig, give us a sense of when this was built and what it has endured and survived over the last 850 years.
Well, the history is remarkable, and it actually goes back to the site itself where the cathedral is built. It actually goes back to Roman times. The Parisians, the Catholic Parisians, actually fought a battle against the Romans, and then over time the Catholic Church got involved around 1163, and Pope Alexander III had consecrated this church, and in 1345, 200 years roughly after this original consecration, the church was actually finalized. And the amount of history that we see in this church, it literally gives us a glimpse not only into French history, but also to European history, into Christendom history, and also even the United States, because a lot of sectarian issues that were happening between Protestants and Catholics at the time were actually playing out in France at that time. So literally you cannot understand the history of all of these entities without exploring the long tradition of Notre-Dame Cathedral.
John, you mentioned the roof, and I was reading today about the roof, which, various parts of the cathedral have been ransacked. They've been damaged in wars. That roof, though, is the original roof, right? I mean, thousands and thousands of oak trees. That now will have to be rebuilt.
Yeah, it's built in a Gothic manner with very heavy timbers. And I'm sure they will attempt to restore it exactly the way it was built originally. So they'll have to, find timbers. They'll have to build it in the same kind of structural manner. Hopefully not with steel or concrete, but really recreating it as it was originally.
We have some images I think we were showing from inside, the first sort of images of inside the sanctuary. And again, there is obviously significant damage. That spire, which is about 150 years old, which collapsed into the cathedral itself. But as you can see from these images, it is not a destroyed structure, Craig. There is much work that will have to be done, but it has been spared. What do you foresee as the horizon for rebuilding Notre Dame?
Well, thank goodness all of the historic relics were saved. The crown of thorns and the fragment of the cross were saved. Now, I think this is a great opportunity for the people of Paris, of all faiths, of all religions, of all races, to come together and to unite in order to rebuild this structure, which isn't simply a symbol of the French and Christendom, but it's a symbol of humanity, of our hope, of our struggle, of the glorious achievements that we can achieve in terms of architecture. So this is actually an opportunity, and I have little doubt that the people of Paris and the people of France will unite and build an even bigger and even stronger cathedral.
John, there had been some back and forth about the cost of these renovations and about concerns about some of the structural integrity of the church. Of course, maintaining something like this is extremely expensive, and some jurisdictional battles between the nation owns it and leases it to the Catholic Church. We got word today that it appears to be an accident, but what do you foresee as the kind of recrimination or fallout from what happened today?
Well, if it's an accident, related to the renovation work that's going on, hopefully there will be some insurance involved. And don't forget, in Venice, just a few years ago, La Fenice, the great opera house in Venice, had a very similar construction fire and had to be totally rebuilt. And I'm sure they'll do that here with the Notre-Dame Cathedral, and there will be a number of players: the French government, the city of Paris, and presumably insurance, and private donors as well.
Well, it's amazing that the firefighters of Paris were able to rescue that building today. It really did look touch and go there for a large stretch of today. John Stamper and Craig Considine, thank you so much for being with me tonight.
Thank you, Chris.
If Stephen